Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Proudfoot podcast. Today, on our 25th episode, we are going to talk about movement in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So let's get started. Okay, so movement we have covered before. Every character has a speed, and typically the speed is 25 or 30 feet for the majority of races that you'll see in D&D. This is the movement that they have on their turn in combat. So that's how much they can move in 6 seconds. And it's a walking speed, but it does say that it does assume short bursts of energy for these movements. Now, that's all well and good for combat, but what about when we're not in combat, we're just traveling around? How fast do we move? Well, D&D gives us a table on page 182, which tells us what our traveling paces are. There are 3 of these traveling paces: slow, normal, and fast. If you're going slow, you are able to stealth as a party. If you're moving at a normal pace, there's no benefits, but there's also no drawbacks. And if you're moving at a fast pace, everyone's passive perception suffers a -5 penalty because you're moving fast, you're not able to perceive what's around you as well. You might also be asking, how long can I travel? Well, it breaks this up into minutes, hours, and days. So for a day, they are assuming 8 hours. You can travel for more than 8 hours in a day, but you risk getting exhausted. I'll talk about what exhaustion is very shortly. For every hour you travel beyond the 8th, you have to make a Constitution saving throw to not become exhausted. And the DC of this saving throw goes up by 1 for each hour beyond 8. So it starts at 11, goes up to 12, 13, so on and so forth. Now, what's exhaustion? Well, exhaustion is a type of condition we can get in D&D, and it's a very special one because it comes in levels. We do not want to get higher and higher levels because they come with more and more bad stuff. Everything that you get from the different levels of exhaustion is cumulative. So whatever you got for 1, 2, and 3 still apply when you get level 4 exhaustion. There are only 6 levels, and the 6th level is instant death. That's right. If you walk for too long in D&D, you might just die. Try to avoid getting exhausted. The way to remove exhaustion typically is by taking a long rest. That removes 1 point of exhaustion. And if you would like other ways, there are spells like Greater Restoration, which can also remove exhaustion. But typically, just take long rests. Don't walk for more than 8 hours a day, and you'll be fine. If you want to know what the exact conditions of all 6 levels of exhaustion are, consult Appendix A of the Player's Handbook on page 291. There is a box there which summarizes all of these conditions. There are also a variety of vehicles we can use in D&D, such as wagons, carriages, and even ships. Depending on the size of these vehicles, they do need to be operated by a crew 24/7 potentially. There are also mounts in D&D. A player can ride a mount, and when doing so, they can choose to gallop, which means they move at double the mount's speed for 1 hour, after which the mount has to rest. The rest time is ambiguous, meaning it's up to the DM to decide based on the circumstances. Additionally, for a mount, you must be 1 size smaller in order to ride it, and it must be suitable for riding. Sometimes you'll find yourself trying to move through difficult terrain. This means that you are in some environment that has made it hard for you to move at your normal pace. While in difficult terrain, your movement is halved. Not only that, there are sometimes situations where you'll need to scale a wall or swim for whatever reason. In these situations, you have a walking speed. You do not have a climbing or swimming speed. So when you do these actions, it costs double your movement. Not only that, this stacks with difficult terrain. So if you find yourself climbing in difficult terrain, then you are only moving a third of your normal pace. Another way you can move in D&D is by jumping. There are 2 types of jumping: long jumping and high jumping. In order to reach your full potential at both, you need to take a 10-foot running start. If you do not, your speed, or your jump speed rather, will be halved. For long jumping, you can jump your strength score in distance. If there are obstacles in the way of the distance you're jumping, then you have to do a DC 10 athletics check to not hit them. On top of that, if you're landing in difficult terrain, you have to do a DC 10 athletics check to not fall prone. With high jumping, you can jump up to 3 plus your strength modifier. Sometimes a DM will let you roll an athletics check to see if you can jump higher than normal. On top of this, when you're high jumping, you can try and reach, and the total distance you reach to is your jump plus 1.5 your height. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to talk about today is things you can do while you're traveling. So while you're traveling, it's very common for a marching order to be established, and with a marching order comes different things that players can perceive. So when you're walking, if you're just walking along, it's assumed you're passively perceiving everything and trying to watch for traps, enemies, that sort of thing. Remember, if you want to stealth, you need to move at a slow pace. And remember, if you're moving fast, you suffer penalties to perceiving things. If a player wishes, they can choose to engage in survival-based checks rather than passively perceiving their environment. Some options include navigating to make sure the party is taking the shortest path to get to their destination, tracking down the location of an NPC by looking for their footprints in the dirt, or even scrounging for remnants of food and water along the trail so as to make sure the party doesn't starve to death. Additionally, any party member can choose to draw a map, and this does not require any sort of check whatsoever. It's just assumed you know how to draw a map. Okay, that's everything I wanted to talk about in today's episode of the Eddie Proudfoot podcast. If you enjoyed it, please follow us on Instagram, Spotify, or Twitter. And as always, may the gods have mercy on your soul.